for Inside Utah Politics with Lindsay Aerts.
Well, welcome into IOP Plus today. So glad that you're here. Thank you for finding us on News for Utah Plus. If you're watching this maybe on YouTube or off someone's Twitter feed, you'll want to, sorry, your X feed. What do you say, re-X? So like that, it still doesn't work.
Good word.
It just
Nobody knows.
years later, it still doesn't work. News for Utah Plus is the TV app. So if you have Amazon Fire, Roku, or Apple TV, you want to download News for Utah Plus and stream it to your TV and tell your friends about us. All right, lots of topics to dive into today in Utah politics. Let us start with the governor's budget. Now, before you turn off the TV, don't worry. There are some potentially sexy things in here. I would say, let me bring in my host today, Taylor Morgan and Erin Ryder. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
It is good to be with you. Tell everyone your credentials.
Go ahead, Erin.
I'm Erin Ryder. I am a local attorney.
Director of the Utah State Office of, or the HOA Ombudsman.
She hasn't
Office,
been
right?
claiming that lately.
Really? Are you not allowed to claim that? I'm sorry, Erin. Did I just? Is that a conflict?
It is true. Yes, I am the director of the HOA Ombudsman Office at the Department of Commerce, and we haven't talked about that on the show before. But usually
it has been on
I'm not
IUP.
here in my official capacity. I'm here as an attorney.
And that's all you have to say is,
I made that really awkward.
you don't speak for the
We
state.
appreciate it, Taylor.
You don't speak for the state. You don't speak for the governor. You don't speak
That's a
for.
great tone for the rest of this conversation.
Erin is kind of a big deal, is my point.
Sure.
And as even the former Republican nominee for Salt Lake County,
Oh.
I would just maybe point out that we would all be maybe a little better off when it comes to property taxes had Erin Ryder won.
Do you hear him trying to like dig himself out of this hole? He's like,
Hey, you know what? I continue.
You cannot argue with the facts. My name is Taylor Morgan, partner at Morgan May Public Affairs.
he's a lobbyist and he gets himself in trouble often when he says things
true.
that he shouldn't.
Absolutely. Right.
Okay, let's dive into the governor's budget. Here's a couple highlights that I took from it. No income tax cut this year being proposed by the governor. That's significant because we've proposed this income tax cut and we've cut income taxes over the last 5 years. It's something the state loves to tout. Obviously, our Republican-led leadership here in the state loves to have low taxes and tout that they're able to cut taxes because of how they budget. There's also money in this budget for the new homeless campus in Salt Lake County that's causing some consternation among some. There is some budgeting for an expansion of the child tax credit. So right now it's 0 to 5. This would be a little boost for those who have kids 0 to 3. The state believes that's when kids are most expensive. So they want to kind of prop you up a little bit when you have kids that young. There is a lot more in the budget, but guys, give me your takes. What stuck out to you? And then I want to talk about just like the budget in context. Like, does the legislature just take this and go and rip it up, or how does it work?
Well, I love the governor's budget. I think it's great, but it's also a lot like my 10-year-old's Christmas list that I just reviewed actually last night. There's a lot of great ideas there, a lot of fun things. In reality, though, only a couple of those will become reality.
Dear Santa, I would really like a child tax credit.
Well, and with that, Lindsay, you mentioned the tax cut. We have a Speaker of the House here in Utah who is actively running for governor in 2028, actively behind the scenes.
That's
course.
news. I'm going to have to follow up on that. Go ahead.
Oh, come on. That's not news. I've been on the record.
No, you have not said
Speaker
that.
Schultz is absolutely eyeing a run for governor here in Utah in 2028. And as part of that, I think he might be interested in making sure there is another cut to the state income tax. So I wouldn't write that off just yet. I think the governor's wish list for homeless services and others, I don't know that the legislature will go along with those in particular. So the governor's budget is, I think, an interesting framework, but I do not necessarily think it will line up with what we see coming from the legislature.
So, Erin, what happens if the legislature wants to propose an income tax cut, but the governor doesn't think it's a good idea in this lean budget year?
Well, I mean, the thing about the budget is the legislature has the ability to pass a budget. And so even if the governor doesn't like it, I mean,
He can veto it,
yeah,
but
he can veto it,
Yeah.
but it's the legislature who ultimately is going to make that decision in a lot of ways. And so, I guess we'll see. The thing that really sticks out to me in this is that it is going to be a tighter budget than we've seen in the past. There are changes to the federal dollars that are coming into the state. There are other changes going on that are just going to make this a tighter budget. And so all around, I think the conversations about where the money goes and who gets allocated what, those conversations might get more heated this year because there's just not as much money to go around as we've seen in the past. And if the legislature wants to do a tax cut, then, they're going to have to find that money somewhere.
What's going to give?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's usually the question. I mean, I can remember for the last at least 2 years that I've covered the legislature, we've heard Senator Jerry Stevenson, the chair of the budget committee, say it's a socks and underwear year, just meaning like that's all you're getting for Christmas this year, kids. Like nothing exciting because we've got to cut
And this year
somewhere.
is a used socks and
Yeah.
underwear year. I'm not sure, Senator, I'm not sure if you know what that means or do you want to delve into that much, but used socks and underwear,
Used
I
socks
just
and
hope they've been
underwear.
washed.
Right. They'll have holes in them this year, that's for sure. But are you guys worried about that? I mean, a lean budget year means not as much revenue is coming in. Erin, you mentioned some of that federal piece, but what does it mean for Utah taxpayers that we aren't taking in as much money as we're spending?
Mm. It's a tough economic environment
Yeah.
with inflation, with pricing, there's so many things happening right now with the economy here in Utah. And we should note, importantly, Utah's economy is still strong. We are still growing, right?
Yeah, and we still have a
Businesses-
rainy day fund and all of
Yeah,
that.
business
So,
is
yeah.
booming here in Utah. We are in really good shape. But what we do really well here in Utah, per our constitution in the state, we balance our budget. And our legislators who meet for 45 days in session every year do an incredible job of only spending as much money as we bring in. If we could say that for other states and the federal government, I wish we could, right? We wouldn't have the $40 trillion national debt. So Utah is in a really good place fiscally. Our house is in order, but revenues are down, which means we're going to have to trim our budgets, tighten our belt. It's not going to be anything catastrophic or dramatic, but we will see some cuts.
Yeah, I think I agree with Taylor on this. I'm actually not really concerned about this, really. Like, yeah, we're going to see some changes in the way that we spend money, but Utah is a very fiscally responsible state and has a track record of being very fiscally responsible. So we just have to make different decisions this year to make sure that we track with that. And, maybe that means we have to get a little bit more creative about how to make sure that we're still supporting Utahns and Utah taxpayers. But at the end of the day, like we're going to live within our means. And that's what the state's job is to do, is to live within our means.
Erin, your office can't hire any new full-time employees, according to the governor's budget, if it's, proposed. It's proposed that we not hire any more full-time employees. Do you care?
Well, I mean, sure.
She's
but
like, I'm gonna do it anyways. You stop me, Governor.
I mean, yeah, of course I care. But at the same time, again, like, we, in terms of my office specifically, right? Like, I didn't have any plans to hire anybody anyway. So,
Yeah, and they did clarify it's not a hiring freeze. It's just you can't add new positions. So like something you were maybe already hiring for can still go on. Apparently, it's just
right.
we're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to new state.
No offense to
positions.
Erin's office. I'm sure Erin's office is the exception because I know Erin and I know how she works and would operate her staff and the expectations there. Just stop that. It's all true. Okay. But the point is, fewer government bureaucrats is probably a good thing. I don't know that we want or need more government employees being paid by tax dollars. So I like the freeze. I'm not too concerned about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, now working in a government position, that it is amazing to me how much government employees can do with really not a lot of money. Like if you think about the number of government employees in the state of Utah and the amount of money that is allocated for those offices, it's really not that much to begin with. My office does not have a very large budget at all. But there are a lot of things that we can do anyway. So, this is just how it goes, right? If you work in the government, you just know that this is the game sometimes and that you've got to be smart with your resources. So, again, that's okay. If that's the direction that the governor and the legislature decide to go, that's okay.
We're going
Roll
to
it
find a
out.
lot of money, extra money, I believe, in higher education. Following up on 265 from last year, where we eliminated redundancies among departments throughout the state in universities and in colleges. That, I think, is going to be a real source of revenue for a potential income tax cut. So that's what I'm watching for.
Interesting. Okay, what gets cut though? I mean,
We had
do we merge more programs?
We had over 80 different degree programs across the state that were only producing 1 or 0 graduates with a degree, right, at universities and colleges throughout the state. Those departments were costing taxpayers millions and millions of dollars. We have trimmed and cut those programs thanks to Senator Ann Milner, Representative Karen Peterson's leadership. that is going to be a source of revenue.
Okay, interesting. And there was some education funding proposals, but there was no teacher raises in that proposal as well for K through 12 teachers.
Not yet.
Not yet, right. But we saw it last year and the year before. Remember last year there was the hubbub with the collective bargaining ban, and then they came out and gave teachers raises.
Yep.
That was fun.
It's going to get interesting.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Is anybody awake still watching the show?
Yeah,
I want
okay,
to know.
okay,
Now that we're done with the budget.
Okay, let's move on. shall we?
Like I said, I think the fights over this are going to be perhaps more interesting and intense than maybe we've seen in the past.
Okay.
Just because the so this conversation may not be the most exciting you've ever watched, but the ones that are coming might.
Just wait. Yeah, buckle up.
Budget discussions are always fun. Okay, another fun discussion I want to have is that of the Utah GOP. They are currently in the process of trying to repeal Utah's anti-gerrymandering law known as Proposition 4. They're doing that via a ballot measure where they're going out collecting signatures, trying to pose the question to voters on the November 2026 ballot: do you want to repeal Prop 4? But some reporting I did this week looked at who's funding their efforts, and so far they have raised over $4.3 million for this effort to repeal Proposition 4. Taylor, you have run initiatives in the past. I know that that's a significant amount of money when it comes to getting initiatives on the ballot. But what do you make of this sole funder called Securing American Greatness? They're a group out of Massachusetts. They're I don't like to use this word because I think it's pejorative just in its connotation, a dark money group, but it is actually what they so-called get called.
They're a
right?
501c4,
Right.
just like every other Democratic or liberal group that is donated to Utah-based initiatives.
Right, which is why I didn't use the
Same
word.
type of entity.
I
Yeah.
but for lack
You
of
use the word,
no, for
Lindsay.
lack of a better word on how to describe them, they don't have to disclose their donors. They're registered as a 501c4, so as long as they're doing other things, social causes with their money, and then they can, happen to endorse political candidates and fight for political causes. So, what do you make of who's funding them and how much money they've raised?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think it's important to be clear that this money coming in from out of state, from one single very large national super PAC donor, a 501c4, this is in response to millions of dollars coming into Utah previously in support of Proposition 4, right? In support of the litigation. The League of Women Voters, Mormon Women for Ethical Government Litigation was paid for essentially solely by the Arnold Foundation, by Article 4, and by Unite America. These are three progressive out-of-state organizations that fund liberal efforts and initiatives and litigation in states across the country. So it's happening on both sides, right? Two wrongs don't make a right, so to speak. That's what my mom always tried to teach me. But in this case, we need to compare apples to apples, right?
Yeah.
And be fair about it.
But Erin, I want to touch on kind of the complaints of the GOP over the last, long time. They have long railed on out-of-state money funding initiatives, and it was like their whole argument when it came to Prop 4 not being what's best for Utah is because it was out-of-state liberal groups, to Taylor's point, making policy here in Utah. Do you see them at all as being hypocritical here? Or to Taylor's point, are they just doing what's been done unto them?
Fire with fire.
I mean,
Nancy.
well, yeah, that's what I was going to say, right? The argument from the GOP would be, look, you played dirty, so fine, like fire with fire.
I
just
see
like
your
Taylor
liberal money and I'll raise you.
said. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And whatever, like if that's how you guys want to play, then fine. We're going to go out and we're going to bring in our own money and we're going to fight this the other way around, because we tried to have clean hands the first time. We try, like that's the argument that the GOP would make in this case. It's not a wrong argument. Is it also wrong that they're both sort of claiming the same, speaking out of both sides of their mouth? Yeah.
Yeah.
Also
Yeah.
fair.
This is a very worn page in the political playbook here in Utah. I mean, we have seen candidates in both parties
Yeah.
across the spectrum make this same argument about out-of-state money supporting whatever they oppose for decades, right? So that's not new at all. I guess my complaint, my big concern with the Utah Republican Party, Rob Axon, we talked about this, so, come at me, I guess, but in a one-party state where you have a super majority in the state legislature, and that legislature could just very simply place your ballot initiative language on the November 26th general election ballot for you and put it before voters that way without having to spend $1 of out-of-state money on signature gathering by homeless people. Why are we doing this? I think this is a waste of money. This is not a positive, constructive way to engage with voters, I believe. I would much rather see that $4 million go to support good Republican candidates, support the party and its activities. I just think this is a colossal, inefficient waste of money.
Well, so let me actually just ask a question. If the argument with Prop 4 is this is what the people wanted a balanced commission that was going to look at the maps and draw fair, unbiased maps. And if that's what the people wanted, and that's the claim being made, I don't know, could it actually be a way to change the narrative to say, actually, that's not what the people wanted, because the people wanted this other thing instead. And we're going to prove that by doing our own initiative, by going through the same process.
Well, a lot of people are saying that's not what's happening right now after the judge's ruling, right? They're saying we're not having the commission. We had a judge pick a map.
Well,
right?
that's because of the litigation.
Right.
I mean, the sponsors of Proposition 4 agreed to SB 200 the year after they passed that changed the language of their initiative, and later they still sued over it. So let's not pretend like the sponsors of Prop 4, and I can say this because I was close to this effort from day one, the sponsors of Prop 4 are being very dishonest and disingenuous with what their intentions were versus where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, my point in all of this is because if we go down the path of the litigation and where we are now, that's a totally different thing. But if you're the GOP and you're in a state with a supermajority, and the argument against the legislature and against the redistricting process from the get-go has been one party rules them all, if you now go out and you do an initiative to say, you know what, we are going to prove through initiative that people actually don't like what is happening right now. Maybe that cuts out some of the arguments that it's just the legislature doing the party's bidding and it's all the supermajority that doesn't care about people's opinion.
And I
That's my
wonder
only point.
if
It's a good point. I think
Yeah.
what they're doing, and in my opinion, they're overthinking it and they're making it unnecessarily difficult because the signature gathering process is real messy, right? The requirements in the process even today versus in 2017 is different, right? So the Republican Party and those behind this initiative to repeal essentially Prop 4, I think they're wasting a lot of time and money and effort right now trying to get on the ballot when in a constitutional republic with a supermajority Republican legislature, they could just put this on the ballot. And guess what? The polling is in their favor. All of the polling shows Utah voters actually now do not support Prop 4.
But I wonder if the timing made a difference here in the GOP strategy, because at the time that they launched this initiative, and at the time the dual track initiative, right, with the legislative initiative, it could have been seen, I suppose, that the legislature, by putting this amendment on the ballot on behalf of the GOP, that they were impairing the will of the voters, right, which is something that the Supreme Court has said you can't do, legislature, right? So, I mean,
The
just
court has never said the legislature can't put a ballot question before the Utah voters. The
Correct.
legislature has done that many times over the last few years. In fact, Utah voters are the ones who gave the Utah legislature special power in the Constitution to call themselves into an emergency session.
Right, but I'm
So
just saying if they had done that, it could have maybe been seen as them impairing the will of the voters, where the
Yeah.
voters voted for Prop 4 and then the legislature comes and puts it on the ballot
Sure.
again on behalf of the GOP.
Sure. And the
I'm
other
just
side of the
saying.
coin is that they have to rely on a huge out-of-state dark national super PAC to pay for a very rushed, very misguided signature gathering attempt just to try to get on the ballot, right? So pick your poison there. I don't think one is worse necessarily than the other in terms of the optics, but one doesn't cost $4 million and cause all kinds of issues with a rushed signature gathering effort.
Well, we know the legislature too is working on a constitutional amendment, right? But not related to what the GOP is trying to do, which is repeal Prop 4. They're trying to go and say, should the legislature have sole power to redistrict in Utah? Because the judge said we didn't have sole power, and we want to make sure that that's uber clear in the
It's all very clear.
Constitution. It's very clear. That's why we needed to put it on the ballot to have voters clarify that they have the sole constitutional
look,
authority.
Look, I will just say, like, as someone who's looking at policy and has to deal with the statute every single day, sometimes, yeah, you put stuff in the language just to make it super clear so that no one can come back and argue against you later. That's just what you do.
Yeah.
That's the legislative process, is amending language to try and make it clearer and more usable and more workable for the policies you're trying to enact. So even if the legislature is saying, we think the Constitution is completely clear, that is not mutually exclusive to the argument that we may need to make a constitutional amendment so that no one challenges this in the
Yeah.
future.
Well, Judge Gibson got it wrong, clearly. So if a judge can't get the Constitution right, then maybe we can add a few words to clarify it.
Just being clear that that's your opinion, obviously.
It's the opinion of a lot of people.
I would almost say the majority.
You're so feisty today. Everyone's feisty. Let's just take a deep breath, shall we? We're just having a conversation.
Oh, are we?
All right. Okay.
We were fighting. I thought I came here to fight, Lindsay.
We always leave friends. We always leave friends. Okay, want to get to one national topic before we run out of time here. We only have a couple minutes left, but that is a situation with Pete Hegseth. In the past week, we've seen the situation with the boat strikes in the Caribbean, alleged drug traffickers that the U.S. struck down. Reports of a second strike that was authorized to, quote, kill everybody. Some questions around that. But as that is coming out, Hegseth, there's also another report that is coming out that Secretary Hegseth risked compromising sensitive military information with Signalgate. Remember when there was accidentally a journalist in the Signal chat, and a new report that is an Inspector General report, in fact, that is coming out reportedly says that. What do you guys make of this on the heels of Boatgate? No one's calling it Boatgate, but I just did because it's easier to decide. So Signalgate on the heels of Boatgate. Does this change anything for you?
Erin, I'll let you handle this one right off the top.
Boy.
There's a lot here.
Yeah, there's a lot here.
Let me jump in with this.
Okay.
Two things can be true.
You start, but I'll go first.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just trying to buy you some time because you're going to say something smarter than me. Two things can be true in my opinion. Number one, I am really happy to see that we are taking action, and even this kind of action, against narco trafficking. Drugs are decimating American families. They're killing Americans. Our friends and families are dying because of fentanyl and drugs that are being trafficked into the U.S. from foreign countries, right? No question about that. That's a fact. The other thing that can be true is we need to make sure that we're fighting narco terrorists, narco traffickers in the right way. And that doesn't mean we have to be soft or we have to let process prevent us from taking military action. But we should be transparent, and we should adhere to international and our own laws when it comes to engagement.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I also think, in terms of the vein of two things can be true, I think there are a lot of things that we can be grateful for in terms of looking at how the military operates and wanting to make sure that our military remains strong and robust and the top of, the global leader in terms of, military defense and support. But I also think that we can acknowledge that Pete Hegseth is highly problematic as the leader, the secretary or the defense secretary. And both of those things can also be true.
Yeah.
And there are lines that can be crossed. When they are crossed, what do you do with them and how do you handle that?
Similarly, with our immigration process, we know immigration has been a major, major problem in our country for decades. Both parties in Congress have failed to take any kind of meaningful action to reform our immigration systems and process, right? And President Trump, to his credit, has curbed illegal immigration significantly. Now, of course, there are issues and problems with the way ICE is behaving and the way we're going about doing some things. But in the end, I still think it's a good thing that we're taking action, right?
Yeah. All right, interesting. We'll have to leave it there because we're out of time for today. Taylor Morgan, Erin Ryder, thanks for your insights today. And as always, we leave friends because we're
Always.
besties. Stop yelling at me.
Nobody's yelling at you, Lindsay. You're so sensitive today. Yeah. What's happening?
Yes, Taylor, please tell her how
Yeah,
sensitive.
please.
I just got myself in trouble. What a
All
great
right.
way to go.
We started the show with you getting yourself in trouble. We'll end it with that. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate you. Love you very much. All right. We appreciate Laura, who's been filling in for producer Peter. He'll be back next week.
I'm sorry for everything, Laura.
Watch Inside Utah Politics. This Thursday, we will have a discussion with State Senator Mike McKell about the special session. We didn't even touch on that. A special session that's coming up on Tuesday, dealing with election timelines related to the redistricting case. And then we will also talk a little bit more about the governor's budget and have a really cool artist on who's been doing some painting for political leaders both here and across the nation. So we will delve into that Sunday at 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. on ABC4. We will see you there. And here on this platform, we will see you next time.